how's it going? So we're gonna be doing this one here. Reverse a linked list. Alright, so it's not difficult when you understand how it works. Sorry about me whispering. It's just that my neighbors are sleeping, so I have to be quiet, right? Okay. So I'll show you how to do it. Now, the biggest issue is that each variable. Now, normally in JavaScript, you have single point principle, where a variable acts and it does only one thing, right? Now, in here, the problem is that your variables are going to be doing many things, and that's going to confuse absolute shit out of you, right? Because you're not used to variables doing that, and you're going to have to get used to it, right? There's no other way to do it. Okay. Also, in the description below, you can see the object, right? So you'll be able to see how it works step by step, right? I suggest doing this. I'll do it later, okay? So, right, in the beginning, you have an object which looks like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So when you point object next, it gives you this. Object next, it gives you this, right? So we need to create a second object, right? And insert values like this one by one. Whoops, there's null in here. So we need to insert like this. Okay, so that's what we're going to be doing, right? So, okay, so the first thing is create a variable called final object, right? We then need a second variable called, I call it memory. You can call it whatever the hell you want, right? So final object starts with null. Memory starts with whatever is in here. So final memory is going to be equal to object. Okay, so that's going to be the value inside the memory. Next, we're going to create a while loop. It's going to iterate. Okay, it's going to go do iterations. Now, we're going to get to the while loop later, but let's just pretend it does infinite iterations. While infinite iterations. Okay, let's just forget about while loop. Just pretend it just does infinite iterations. Inside the while loop, we're gonna create another variable called end save, or you can call it whatever you want. You will need this variable to store the initial value that's inside the memory. Okay, so it's going to be called end save, and it's going to store at the beginning of every loop memory dot next. So it's going to store this. Okay, so that's three variables, right? So that's the structure. Okay, so now let's iterate through the while loop, right? So iteration 1. What's gonna happen, right? We're gonna have inside the loop end save equal to memory next, right? So end save okay, so end save what's the value? What is the value inside of and save? Well, we know that memory is equal to this whole thing. Memory dot next is going to be equal to this. So that's what we're going to store. All right, that's going to be the value inside and save. Actually, I'm going to show it to you, right, inside the code. So we're going to delete this, right? So let final object equal to null. Let memory equal to object. So now remember what's inside memory. Memory is equal to the whole object, okay? Now we're gonna create. This is for your own purpose only. You do not need this for the code, but this is for me to show you. Let I equal to 0 while I smaller or equal to 0, I plus plus. So you can see step by step how iteration happens. Again, this code is useless. This is just for you. Okay? And in here we're gonna have red and save equal to memory dot next. Okay? Look. So what did we do with end save? We snipped out the final part. You see? So end save is now equal to whatever this part here. Okay? So now if we're gonna console log, I'm not gonna confuse you. Let's just go step by step, right? So now end save is equal to the final part without the first, right? So the final part, we need that to store. Okay, right? Next, it's a little bit confusing, right? We're going to go with memory next equals to final object. Okay, we need to do that. We need to do that because now if you look at memory, it's gonna be equal to, right? Remember, memory has all of this. Okay, right? So that's initial state of the memory. We then take this part next, we remove it, and we assign whatever was in here, final object. So this is now like this. Okay, right? So memory is now equal to 1 plus whatever is in final, right? I know it's confusing. You're gonna have to do this manually, explain it to yourself for about 4 to 5 hours because before you understand it, right? I'm serious. This will take you like 4 to 5 hours. It's very complex, right? So now look, memory next is equal to final object, okay? And we're gonna console log memory. All right, look, it's going to refresh. Look, you see, that's the value of memory now because we removed this part and we put final object part into it, right? So now we need to make final object equal to this thing here because we're gonna pass it over to the next iteration, right? So look, final object is equal to memory. So now final object is gonna be equal to this because we need to move it to the next iteration, right? Okay. And then finally, right? So look, so final object is equal to memory, and then console log final object. So now memory and final object are going to be the same, right? But the idea is to have final object contain. So you see, we pushed this element into the final object. All right. Do you see? Right? I know it's confusing, but you're gonna have to do it with yourself and explain it to yourself multiple times. And then finally, we take memory is equal to this here and save, because we need to move it to the next iteration. Okay, so now if you look at memory, it's gonna be equal to whatever is in here. Okay, so now we have pushed one out of the memory into final object in here, and the remainder is now inside the memory, right? So next part, next iteration, we want to take memory, put it in here into final object, and move this into the next iteration. Okay, and that's what the loop is going to do. I'm sorry it's confusing, but it's just that's the nature of this thing. Okay, so now look, you see, now memory equals to end save this variable here. So if we console log it, that's what's going to be in it, you see. All right, so on next iteration, it's going to take 2 and it's going to move it into here. Look, you see. Oh shit, it's too big. How can I? Hold on a sec. Let me do this for you. Okay, so let's do 1 to 2. Okay, so on next iteration, we want to move 2, this here, into here, right? So that's exactly what it's going to do. Right, so if we do this, oh man, it's too big again. Whatever. Let's go back to the while loop. Yeah, let's just go back to the while loop. Okay, we're gonna have to do it manually. All right, we're gonna have to do it manually. Okay, so now think about iteration 2. Iteration 2, right? And save variable is gonna be equal to memory.next. Okay, memory.next, right? So what's inside and save? Inside and save is gonna be this part here, because it's next of the memory, right? So we're storing it in here. This part here goes here. All right. Next, we do memory.next equals to final object. Final object, right? Why? because we need this to be this, right? So remember, memory at the moment, memory, right, is equal to this whole thing, all right? We want to remove this part and make it this, right? So we're going to take memory.next is equal to this, right? After the transformation, memory is going to look like this. You see, it's going to become 2 and whatever is in here, because this is the next part and this is the original part. Does that make sense? We can look at it in here, because look, we have console of memory. Oops, I screwed it. I'll do it this way, like so. Look, let's do iteration 2. Yikes, it's a bit too big. But remember, you see this data here, right? We are replacing this part with whichever was inside the object, all right? We're gonna have to do it manually. I'm sorry, we're just gonna have to do it manually, right? So remember, memory was 2, 3, 4, 5, like this, because that was the value from previous iteration. We're then taking the next part, which is this, removing it, right? And then we are taking the final object and replacing it. That's what you get. All right, that's what you get. Then, right, we need to make final object equal to this part, right? Because remember, we moved 2 from memory into final object. That was the objective. Okay? And now we have accomplished this objective, right? So now we need to get final object equal to memory. So if you look at final object now, it's equal to this, right? And then finally, we want memory to be equal to end save, which is the remaining values. So now memory is equal to this. You know what I'm gonna do? Instead of this, we're gonna console log. Gonna console log final object, and we're gonna console log memory. So you will see transformation step by step. Let me just remove this real quick. All right. So now we need to move 2 into here, right? So if we do another iteration, it's going to do that. You see? So you see final object is equal to 2, 1, and 0. And memory is equal to 3, 4, 5. You see? 2, 1, 0, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So next iteration, we want to move this in here. And then memory is going to be this. All right? So now let's do that. Now, all of this is the same code, only I'm just showing you step by step how it works, the logic, right? Again, end save is going to be equal to memory dot next, right? We know that memory is equal to this, right? So next is going to be equal to this. So end save is going to be this. Now we need memory dot next to be equal to. Okay, let's go back a step. What is memory equal to right now? Memory is equal to this. we want to remove this part, right, and replace it with this, right? So memory dot next is equal to final object, right? So what is memory equal to now? All right. So memory is equal to 3, and we removed this part and we replaced it with this. Okay, so now we accomplished our objective of moving this to here, right? So now we need final object to be equal to this. So our final object is now this, all right? And now we need to save this somewhere and move it to the next iteration, which is going to be memory, right? So now memory is equal to and save, okay? So now memory, oh, whoops. So memory is now this. So this is third iteration. Final object is 3 to 1 null. Memory is 4, 5 null. Right, so let's check. You see, 3, 2, 1 null, 4, 5 null. Right? You see? Okay. Iteration 4 and save is equal to memory dot next, right? So what is end save? Right, so end save is going to be this, because that's the full memory. Next is this, right? So now we need, so what is memory right now? What is memory right now? Memory is this. Now we need memory dot next equal to final object. We want to remove this part and put this part into it, right? So memory, we do that, that's what it becomes. You see, so we removed this part and replaced it with this part. Now, again, we have accomplished our objective of putting 4 in here, right? So that's the value of memory right now. We want to take our final object and assign memory to it. All right, so our final object is equal to, yeah, so remember, final object, what was the value of final object, right, in here? Final object was this value here, right? But we want it to be this, so we reassign. That's the value of final object. And now we need to store this somewhere for later use. So we do memory equals and save. Memory is now this. So you see object is now this, and memory is now this. So on next iteration, we want 5 to go here, right? So we look into iteration 4, right? You see, it moved. Now we want 5 to move in here. So this will be iteration 5. Okay. So let's go. And save equal to memory.next. Okay, so what is the value of memory? Again, memory is equal to this, right? Memory.next is equal to this. So and save value is going to be null right now, right? Again, what is the value of memory? It's 5. We want to keep this part and remove this part, right? So we do memory.next is equal to final object, right? So now we have kept this part and replaced this part with whatever is in final object, like this. Again, we have accomplished our objective of moving 5 to here, we need final object to be equal to this, because at the moment, value of final object, what is the value of final object? It's like this, right? And we want it to be this. So we want final object is equal to memory, because that's the value of memory. Because if you look in here, memory is going to be this, right? You can console log all of this, so you'll be able to see it, right? All right, so now at the end of transformation, final object is now this. And finally, we want to store null somewhere, right? We want to store null somewhere. So we want memory to be equal to end save. So now memory, what is the value of memory? It's null, because that's the value here. Okay, and that's it. It's done, right? We're gonna run this loop until memory becomes null, and then we exit. All right, we just exit. Look, you see, if we define a loop, it moved. Now we have memory null. So we can put a while loop in here. Memory does not equal to null, right? And we can remove our I. And we want to return final object. Return final object. Like the idea is we took values from object one by one, inserted them into final object, and that's it. Right. I know it's confusing, I'm sorry. It's just that's the way it is. There's no way to do it easier. I wish it wasn't so confusing, but I mean, it's algorithms, right? Okay.